Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back to the BJJ Brick Podcast. This is episode 305. Today we're going to be talking about taking some time off the mats. You know, is that a good thing, bad thing? Should you be doing that, and how to do that properly? My name is Byron. I'm here with my good buddies Joe and Gary. Joe, how's it going down south?
Man, it's hot and humid already, but looking at the weather, I see there's flooding everywhere, including in your neck of the woods, so I'm not complaining.
Yep.
How are things up there today?
Things are going pretty good. Gary, you staying dry?
Staying dry. You know, I'm just a little beat up from rolling this morning, so I think I was going to take some time off from rolling maybe.
We'll talk about that. Whether it's a short time or a long time, we'll see what Gary's looking at. I'm sure it's a short time. But that happens to everybody. We all take some bumps and bruises from time to time, and that's definitely a reason to take a little bit of time off. We have a whole list of stuff, but we have a little pre-show here with the quote of the week and the off the mat lesson and those sort of things. And of course, we have our post-show with the article of the week and our question as well. Guys, what do we have this week for the off the mat lesson, Joe?
I've got a couple of projects going on around my house right now that all have to do with cinder blocks. And interestingly, I came into an abundance. Well, I came into an abundance of cinder blocks for free through the jiu-jitsu community. I needed some cinder blocks to build a little bit of a berm or put something along the side of my driveway to keep the gravel from continuing to run off when it rains and gets washed off. So I put out a plea on Facebook, hey, I need some bricks. And sure enough, somebody from the gym said, hey, I know where you can get some. And so I went out there and I got all I needed for that project. But this person's like, my brother-in-law's getting rid of a ton of them. They're moving all these trailers at the trailer park. Take all you want. Turns out I'm doing them a favor too. I'm getting rid of them. So I've just been grabbing all these blocks, and I put together a couple of extra garden plots and got that going on. And then today I started building a skate ramp. So I'm using some cinder blocks to block it in, and I'm going to use some cement to make a nice ramp out in my driveway. And it's something I've wanted to do for a while. It's been on my radar, but it's way down the list. But these bricks are available, so now is a good time to do it. And you bring that back to jiu-jitsu. I've known a lot of people that will take something like an inverted guard, not playing dynamic open guard, and they'll be like, that's not really my thing. It's on my list of things to learn. It's down the list. So when I get to it, when I learn these other things I think are more important, then I'm going to get to that. But man, if it's on your list and your coach says, hey, this our brown belt here who is excellent at open guard, plays a lot of inverted guard, he's going to start teaching on Thursday nights. And if that's something you've been interested in, come in on Thursdays and learn that. Learning those guards might have been way down your list, but right now you've got the materials available. You've got the opportunity to learn it. So now would be the time. So, I mean, just like this skate ramp is something I may have not built for 5 years, except now the bricks are just happen to be available to me. If you've got an opportunity to pick up some bricks in jiu-jitsu that you thought were down the line a little bit, when the opportunity presents itself, take advantage of it.
Joe, you did it again. I don't know how many weeks this is, but you just won the internet again with the brick segue.
That's what I love most about jiu-jitsu.
No, Joe, I really do like that. Like you were saying, if you're working on somebody really good with inverted guard is showing up and going to teach a class on Thursday. It may not be something that you're working on right now, but hey, let's put that into our stockpile. Let's get ready for the zombie apocalypse. The more we know, we're going to get to that down the road. We're going to be doing it, but you'll have a head start. It's going to help you get better. It's going to help you understand stuff when you do see it. So definitely, it's a good way to get better. Don't miss it. Learn.
Yeah, you got to strike when the iron's hot. And I've been to, I don't know how many billions of seminars. No, many, many seminars over the year. And sometimes you go to a seminar and they teach stuff that's just not really into your game or things you do. But you could either kind of like, well, this didn't really pan out for me. Or you could try to get in there and learn the best you can and absorb some information and maybe incorporate it into your game. And that's just really taking advantage of that, which is in front of you, which is a really smart thing to do, like what Joe did. He may not have been planning on doing this at the moment, but the price is right, and you're able to add some bricks to the property there. So that's awesome. And I'm definitely impressed that this has to do with cinder blocks, but that's close enough.
Yep. Anytime you got an opportunity to add a brick to your arsenal, man, take that chance.
Guys, I want to get a quick mention of our audiobook, Your First Year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It is a book I made a while back. It's about 2.5 hours long. It's very similar to a podcast. It's just audio format of, I want to sit down with you and talk to you about jiu-jitsu, really what to expect your first year, some of the benefits you're going to experience with jiu-jitsu, some of the techniques you should be really focused on, and maybe some of the ones that you should not be so geared towards learning that first year. Like, help you avoid some of those things that are all common pitfalls. The audiobook is $11.99. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. The money goes and helps support the show, and it really means a lot to us. And we've heard some great things from people who have got the start off listening to this book and listening to that their first year, whether it's their first day, but before you go actually train, or maybe you've been training for a little while, several months, and you get to kind of see, hopefully smooth some things out with this. So check it out if you're in that first year of grappling. Be honored to help you guys out. And it's got a picture of me hitting Gary with a brick. That's always nice.
Always nice.
We don't want you to kind of lose your way in that first year.
Speaking of losing, it's ironic. Man has a habit of the more they've lost their way, the faster they run. Okay, that's a paraphrase, but Rollo May said, it is an ironic habit of human beings to run faster when we have lost our way. And we talked about this a little bit before the show, and I like Byron's take on it. I'm going to give him a chance to get to that in a minute. But when I first read it, I looked at the bigger picture of jiu-jitsu, and it seems like when people start to get frustrated, I'm included in this, and I feel like I'm not making any progress, that sometimes I confuse a lot of activity for achievement, and I need to do more things. I need to do them better. I need to do them faster, whatever. I start working on half guard and butterfly guard and inverted zebra guard and whatever else, and I got so many things going on. And I think, honestly, sometimes if you just take a minute, take your breath, and slow down, that the picture will start to come into focus, and you can start to train a little faster or a little smarter and not just harder.
Yeah, that's good. And so my interpretation of this quote has a little bit more what happens to me when I roll sometimes. When I've lost my way, I take that as when I'm rolling and I'm confused. And I've been training since 2002. I still get confused regularly. I still don't know what is the right thing for me to be doing here. And I train gi and no gi, but I mostly just roll like I'm no gi. I don't do a lot of things with the collar. Don't really do pretty much anything with the lapel, as far as like a lapel guard type of a game. So occasionally, and like if we get to roll, this next weekend at the BJJ Brick event, if you want to confuse me, start wrapping me up in my own lapel. You'll see me react in the same way. When I get confused, I really have a choice: speed it up and try to win the situation, or slow things down and try to analyze and figure out what's happening and how maybe I can take it apart. And I always tend to lean towards slowing things down. So if I'm caught up in some weird position or someplace I'm not familiar with, I tighten things up, I slow things down, I try to figure out which limb is doing which job, and if I could maybe take that apart a little bit, where the pressure is, where my posture is. Really, just by trying to slow things down, I try to learn from that situation, opposed to just try to defeat it or get out of it. And, I think I probably would have more success rate in the moment if I reacted with a little bit more speed and power. But I think long term, I'm taking my moments of confusion and trying to grow from those and learn from those. So I recommend that if you are lost, don't run. It's hard to run in the right direction, if you are actually lost. And look, if you get lost in the woods, next time Gary's lost in the woods, last time he just ran away and he ended up going the wrong way. maybe slow things down. Lost. Yeah, he got more lost, and thank goodness he had some marshmallows that were falling out of the bag, and somebody found those, and they were eating
marshmallows.
But it all worked out okay for Gary. But it would have been much better if he would have just slowed some things down, looked around, looked for some clues of where he was, and slowly started heading in what he thought was the right way. And I try to do that a lot in jiu-jitsu, and it may backfire, and it often does backfire in the moment I'm rolling, and I may get caught in something. But I think long term, I'm getting a better understanding of what's happening in moments of confusion for myself. So I think I'm learning better that way.
Byron, I do this, depending on what I'm doing, I do it the other way. When I do a jiu-jitsu, I'm with you. I kind of slow things down and analyze and, try to figure out the ways to untangle something. And maybe like you said, while I'm trying to untangle, I may get tapped out. I may have not got tapped out if I just exploded real quick. But really, am I learning anything at that point? But in real life, work and, other stuff, I find myself just running as fast as I can. It's funny because this week has been very busy at work, and I've just been finding myself just running, and it feels like I haven't really got anywhere. I've been making a lot of mistakes, and I think it's because I haven't slowed down. I've been having so much going on, and instead of analyzing, trying to think smarter, I'm just trying to do everything as fast as possible. So I do totally agree that slowing things down, analyzing stuff is the best way to go. Like you said, I got lost in the woods by running, and and you do hear about that in real life. People, freak out. They get lost in the woods, and they end up even more lost. They always say, kind of stay where you're at, and hopefully you told somebody where you're hiking or whatever, so they can find you. But on the jiu-jitsu mats, I think I do it right. And what I'm going to have to do is, use some of my lessons from my jiu-jitsu and take it back into my workplace, into my family life. And I think I'll be doing better in all aspects of my life if I do that.
Nice, Gary. I like how you took it. We took it from off the mat to on the mat, and then you bring a different tangent off the mat, with family and those sort of situations.
It really hit home just the last week I've had, and
once you found your home, once you got out of the woods.
Yeah, well, yeah. If it wasn't for those marshmallows.
The bad thing is, he was just at his neighbor's house the whole time. He gets really confused sometimes on like a Friday night.
Yeah, I am getting a little bit older, so it could be dementia there, Byron. You could be making fun of a sick kid.
Yeah, if all of Gary's neighbors know, if he's walking around in his underwear, his tighty-whities, just point him in the right direction. He's pretty harmless out there. Just kind of get him back home, and then they'll call his wife or his family, and they come get him. Oh, if it was only that easy, Gary.
If it was only that easy, it'd be awesome.
Yep. When the underwear are still tight and white, then Gary's neighbors know that he just escaped.
When there are other colors, I've been out a little while.
And if they're gone entirely,
it's been a party.
Run.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're lost, just run. Run. Yeah, just run away. It doesn't matter the direction at some point in time. Just disengage from Gary at that point. But so we're doing a topic episode this week. Quick explanation, I guess. Usually we do topic episodes at the end of the month. This week I had several interviews lined up, and scheduling conflicts and some things happened, and none of them really came to fruition. And I have a couple interviews scheduled for next week, and so we could have just done this and edited in who we're interviewing later on. But I'm also potentially getting jury duty, going to be on that, and that would just kind of annihilate my week and my ability to even do anything podcasting wise. And so we decided to do a topic episode kind of in the middle of the month. And I know that these are popular with the audience, and you guys always like when we kind of jump on a topic and discuss it. Kind of like when somebody jumps on your back and they're choking you out. They usually have a good time. So that's what we're doing here. We still plan on doing a topic episode at the end of the month, unless I get a whole bunch of interviews lined up and kind of want to get somebody's information out a little sooner. But I think we could manage to do 2 in a month. I don't think anybody's going to be too upset with us. And
no, yeah, we'll Joe and I we're really okay with this. But topic episode sometimes does require a little more work. So Joe and myself, Byron, I know we kind of just brought
increase.
This up. But yeah, we're looking for a little bit of a pay bump here to stay on this podcast. So just let us know what you're gonna do to take care of us. Byron.
I work in percentages with you guys, and
yep.
So the show is staying afloat and doing okay. But man, it'd be nice to reward you guys a little bit more than just the fun of making fun of you every week. I know you love that, Gary.
So you're going to increase your making fun of me by 5%?
We're going to try. Yeah.
Okay, I'm in.
Okay, he's that's what he's here for. Our rewards are sometimes on the mats, and we'll talk about that towards the back end of the show when we talk about the BJJ Brick event, and that'll be a nice reward seeing you guys and meeting a lot of you coming up very soon. But have you guys looking at the topic? Should you take some time off? What's that look like? Is it ever a good thing? Is it kind of a bad thing? What's going on here with time off? Have you guys taken, I'm sure, we've all trained the 3 of us have trained for many, many years. If you get sick or, a small injury, you're out a week or 2, and that's pretty easy, and that happens within the course of a year a couple of times even. But have you guys taken off more time than that and then had to come back to jiu-jitsu?
Are you talking about from injury or just
from anything? Just you were away a bit from jiu-jitsu more than a month.
I guess the first time I ever hurt my ribs, I was probably out 3 weeks. That's the longest I think I've ever been out. But if you're talking a month, I've never taken a month off.
No, me either. I just missed 2 weeks just with a bad cough and didn't want to bring it around the gym. And with my weird schedule, I've missed, a week, 10 days at a time. That's not all that uncommon for me, but never anywhere near a month. And I've never taken a month off or 3 weeks off just because I need a break from jiu-jitsu. Although one time I had a abdominal, it had to be a tear. I never went to see a doctor. Imagine that. But I had an abdominal issue where I couldn't. Could
have been pregnancy.
I couldn't maintain. No, I couldn't even maintain a plank position. It just felt like somebody was cutting me in half with a dull knife. And that went on for the better part of a year. And it's like, afterwards I thought, man, if I'd have just taken 5 or 6 weeks off, I bet you I'd have been right back to training. And, I kept trying to push through it. And you know how when once you start rolling, your adrenaline kicks in. I don't think you realize how much you're probably stressing something like that out. So I've never planned on taking a month off, but at least one time I probably should have.
What about you, Byron? You ever just taken a month off, either being out with an injury or just to refresh your mind?
I think the longest time I'd taken off was probably a week before my wedding, and then a couple weeks after that with being gone. I really wanted to not get bruised on the face.
Yeah. So we are terrible people to be on this podcast.
But we've all had friends, and we've seen this thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to take a little bit of time off if that's what you need.
I don't think it is at all. But what I was saying is we're the cross section who Joe tears his abdominal and gets pregnant and does not take time off. That's crazy.
Yeah. Looking at all the reasons you might want to take time off, I think injury is the biggest one definitely for the person who's still motivated. Like you have knee surgery, you have something wrong with your neck, or you could even really classify being kind of sick as an injury. If you listen to my interview last week, I had a cold. It took me a week or plus to get back on the mats from that. You definitely don't want to bring that into the gym like Joe was saying. But as far as if you're motivated to train, an injury, a sickness, take you right off the mats and make you stay away for a little while. And, I think it's important to address that and to, get a realistic expectation of how long will I be away? What can I do while I'm away? Am I able to stay kind of fit in the process. I couldn't even, with my cold last week or a few weeks ago, I couldn't even jog. So I'd go on like little 2-mile walks and stuff. That's the best I could do. I did something, but that's really not much when you're trying to perform in jiu-jitsu or used to going out and running a few miles. But what would you guys say to the injured person who, like, you got a buddy, and we've all had, we know a lot of people that have had to have several months off from injury and then want to come back. Any advice you guys have for that person?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm probably the worst person to tell you, but take time off. Time off is very important. You need to heal to progress in jiu-jitsu and to keep in the long run. It's very important, to get rest, to heal, to be able to come back on the mat properly. And I do think a lot of times when I do take a week off due to an injury, I come back hungry to roll. I come back feeling great, and it does help me in the long run.
So I've seen one person, and actually that's a very small number when you think about it. Been doing jiu-jitsu quite a while. I've seen one person sustain a really, really bad injury and come back from it. Had a guy, in fact, he just got his brown belt. Travis St. Pierre, congratulations. He was rolling about a year ago with one of the bigger, more aggressive MMA type guys in the gym. Not the big guy's nice. He's in control. It was just a complete fluke. But during a takedown, he snapped both bones in his lower leg right above the ankle and dislocated the ankle to him. Nasty. I remember, so he went down and he's on the ground writhing and he's kind of in pain. And after 3 or 4 minutes, I honestly had a thought run through my head. Well, I don't really know anything about Travis's pain threshold. Maybe it's not that bad. And then he lifted the whole foot up off the mat, and his foot was just flopping around.
Yeah,
I was like, God. So anyway, so he was forced into taking 6 or 8 months off. I mean, in a wheelchair for a few weeks and on crutches for a few months after that. He came back, and so something that I saw him do, I guess this would be as a way of advice, is he came back slowly. He started coming back like he came back a day or two a week and just did warm-ups and kind of participated doing what he could and slowly worked in. And he probably took 3 months from the first class where he first started coming back to where you saw him 2 or 3 times a week, and he's going 70-80% in class like most people do. So if you're forced into taking 3 or 4 months off for a serious injury, I suppose that would be one piece of advice, is come back slow on a controlled pace.
Yeah, and kind of, I would say, reset your expectations. You're not going to be, I think your timing will probably be a little bit off from what it was after that sort of a break. You just won't perform quite as well as you were the day before you got injured like that. And that's okay. Just don't be frustrated with yourself on that one. Also, with the injury, have a real talk with your doctor or surgeon or whatever you're dealing with, and say, well, when can I get back to some fitness? And mark down the calendar. This day I could start walking. Or this day I could do upper body exercises and do some curls in the squat rack or something like that. Get you going. Or maybe some stationary bicycle activity. I don't know. Like, to me, it's get back into some kind of fitness, because it's so much easier to maintain that than it is to have to build that cardiovascular engine back up to where you had it. So if you can, as soon as you could start maintaining, try to do that. And I think that's a big help. And then also have a date, when can tell you. So I talk to health professionals, and if I've ever had any problem, like, what do you do? Jiu-jitsu, maybe they know what that means. I assume they don't. I would say it's a lot like wrestling. And that kind of gets, okay, you're doing that sort of activity with another person. You're going to want to wait 3 months for that. And say, okay, so maybe in 2.5 months I start doing some light rolls or start getting a little bit back on the mat. But 3 months before I could actually do jiu-jitsu is what the doctor's saying. Put those things on the calendar, on your phone, so you could see it coming up and it dings. Like, I like to do a calendar thing, and I do a reminder maybe a week before or a day before, so a week before, hey, start getting back in jiu-jitsu next week. And then you could kind of get back in that mindset as far as getting past this injury and getting back on the mats. Because nobody wants to be sidelined from jiu-jitsu, but really, if you get sidelined from jiu-jitsu for 3 months, you come back and it's way harder than you anticipated, you have that self-doubt, like, is this what I want to be doing with myself? I don't remember being this hard. I don't remember myself being this bad at it. You want to try to avoid those the best you can. You don't want this to be a jiu-jitsu ending injury, and we're looking to avoid that. I've seen some people, take some time off the mats because they've just lost that desire that they had for jiu-jitsu, and it might be looking at burnout, that maybe they were coming 5 days a week all the time, and it kind of got to a point where it was a tipping point, and now they don't want to do it at all anymore, or something like that. You guys have anything for somebody who's thinking about taking some time off because it's not as enjoyable, or not as they're not as passionate as they used to be?
I do see that happen all the time. You see people, they're just not having as much fun as they used to. And, you just mentioned, Byron, they're training 5 days a week. And sometimes I think you might just put too much training in. You're always sore. You're not getting time to relax. You don't have a lot of stuff going on the outside, and your whole life is getting devoted to jiu-jitsu. And sometimes it might be good to, at that point, take a week off, just to let the body heal, let the mind refresh, cut down a little bit on your training. Everybody's different, but I also think in those points, or in this time, is where your teammates and your instructor are really important. And because what can happen is somebody ends up, they're going to take a week off, and you know how the world goes. A week turns into 2 weeks, turns into 3 weeks, turns into 6 months, turns into a year. And if us as teammates and friends and school owners and professors, if we don't reach out to that person, hey, is everything going okay? Hey, you coming back today? Or, is there anything I can do to, can I come pick you up? I just think, because I've had times when I've been injured and I have had my instructor call, and that means the world to me. Or I've had, friends asking, hey, are you going to be back Friday? I'll be there Friday. Or, hey, I know your knee's bothering you. How about I come back? I'll be there Friday if you want to roll Friday, and we can just roll really light. And, I think that, having the support of your teammates, your gym family, makes it easier if you do take a little bit of time off from burnout to make sure you get back and it doesn't turn into a prolonged absence.
Gary, you mentioned that, and it reminds me that one of the things that I see in jiu-jitsu that I think might be a little problematic is we're constantly elevating the guy that comes 4 or 5 times a week and is getting noticeably better every 6 months. That's the model that we put forward that everybody should be striving for. And, in other activities in America, guys playing City League basketball, guys golfing, guys doing whatever, there's always a percentage of those guys that they've sort of just reached the level that they're comfortable at, and they're just enjoying the activity, and they're not obsessed with getting the best score or winning the biggest tournament. And I think when we kind of hold that model up as this is what everybody wants to be 4 or 5 times a week, getting better every 6 months, winning tournaments, we hold that up as the goal. And then when people fall short of that, it can be discouraging, excuse me, and almost drive you out of the sport. And, I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, but I see that as being a little bit of an issue within our jiu-jitsu community.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that, Joe. You do see a lot of people, feel that they're not good enough. They're not progressing at the same level. And I mean, we've had questions from listeners over that, hey, I started at the same time as this guy. And I'll go back to Byron and I. We started basically the same time. And Byron got so much better much faster than I did. And it would have been easier for me to quit. And, just watching, trying to, watch my progression with Byron. And for me, it did a little bit different. It made me want to, try to get better. But, you're right, Joe. Everybody has a different reason for doing this. A lot of people like myself are just happy with where I'm at. I know I've talked many times on this. If I don't have a smile on my face when I'm rolling, I'm doing it wrong for me. And what's good for me may not be good for you. Other people want to win world championships. I mean, I would like to win a world championship. I know it's not going to happen. I can say it's going to happen all the time. I'm not going to beat guys, that we've had on this show, Brian Marvin and people like that. It's not going to happen. But I can, have fun in this sport. As you guys know, I like to play basketball too. And, I used to play at a higher level basketball. And now when I go out and play basketball, I'm not at that level, but I do it for enjoyment. I have fun. I mean, I'm not going to go out and, beat Division III college basketball player today, but I'm going to go out and if you leave me open, maybe I'll hit a jump shot. Maybe I won't, but I'm going to have fun. Maybe you're going to take me to the hole and dunk on me, but hey, I'm going to play my hardest on defense. And same thing when I'm on the mat. I'm going to go hard, but I'm going to have fun. I'm going to make sure my partner doesn't get hurt. I'm going to try to keep myself by tapping early from not getting hurt. And the hard part is, like you were saying, Joe, a lot of us judge ourselves based off of those guys. And, is it really a fair judgment, fair comparison? Because we're all in it for different reasons. We all have different physical attributes. And that's one thing I really do love about jiu-jitsu. Even though I may not have the same physical attributes as Joe or as Byron, we can all develop ourselves with what we have and be able to take on a mountain, basically with good technique and good training, we can beat, somebody that we didn't think we could beat. Same thing with all sports, but I do think sometimes we judge ourselves too much and we may put too much pressure on ourselves, which leads to that burnout. And then maybe somebody taking extended time off and may not come back. And, as we want to grow jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, this is one that it might be awkward. You're losing that desire to get on the mats. You could talk with your coach about it and say, "Hey, I find myself lacking motivation to come to class. I missed twice last week. I just didn't feel like coming to class, or you're not quite as regular as you used to be, or maybe you're not excited to like when I drive to jiu-jitsu. I'm excited. That drive is gonna go by and I'm smiling. I'm like looking forward to what we're gonna be doing, who's gonna be there, and that sort of thing. That might go away, and to look at maybe like have that conversation. Hey, coach, I'm thinking about taking a month off and just kind of seeing at the end of the month what it feels like to come back to jiu-jitsu. I don't think that's a wrong thing to do, because if you're having to drag yourself to the mats, that's hard to do long term. That's a hard strategy to do for years and years as you work on this craft. So to take a month off and yet again, I've never done this, but I would definitely be. I would say I probably plan out. I probably talk to my wife about it. Hey, starting the first of the month, I'm going to take a month of jiu-jitsu off, and I put it on my calendar. I'm going to go back the next month and see if it feels any different. See if it reminds me of the jiu-jitsu that I used to love. I mean, you're listening to a podcast about jiu-jitsu. You don't just do jiu-jitsu. It's kind of something you do. It's not really very fun for you. And then seek out a podcast to listen to about jiu-jitsu. Like at some point in time, you really loved it to where you were far enough into it that you wanted to listen to a podcast about jiu-jitsu while you're off the mat. It's like, that's quite a desire to go deeper into this world and this community of jiu-jitsu. And so if that's gone, maybe taking a little bit of time away isn't a bad way to reignite that flame and put the romance back onto the situation. But I would just really make sure that month doesn't pass and turn into another month and turn into a year, like Gary was saying. So, like by telling my wife, I'm coming back in a month, help me do that, and putting like a reminder on my phone. This is the day I'm back on the mats. And then even if I don't feel like it, go do it, and maybe it'll feel good. Maybe it'll be something that I enjoy again. I think that's one way to do that with a few safety measures to make it a possible success story in the long run.
Real quick, I was saying Byron was talking about sometimes may not be you may lose that passion And, it might be not a bad time to take time off, and hopefully you get that back. I can say, I spent like a year one time. I did lose the passion. I was going to quit the sport. I really started hating it. As Byron, you hit it right on the nail. I didn't like that drive. I knew it was night for practice, and I'd be at work, and I'd be like, man, I don't want to go. And I would think of excuses not to go and find ways not to go. I really did lose that passion for a while. And I basically took a year where I just trained like one day a week, and it was just a no-gi open mat with a bunch of friends of mine that I really enjoyed hanging out with. And I just remember every week I was so excited to go because it was because I trained so very little, and I just couldn't wait to get on that mat. And that was one thing that really, changed me. I cut down on my volume of rolling, and I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but for me, I just had to get around with what I really enjoyed, because for some reason I wasn't enjoying it at that time. And once I, made a change, and it made a big difference for me. And here I am many years later still doing it. And that 1 year, even though I only trained like once a day or once a week, I did still make progress. And I think it was the progress I made is because I was so happy to train that given day that I was going to show up.
Gary, just out of curiosity, was that year that you only trained once a day or once a week during the BJJ Brick era, or was that before?
It was way before. It was kind of early in my career.
So 2 or 3 years after you started then? Yeah.
I was a blue belt at that time, and I just lost, the fun of it. Byron hit the nail right on the head with what he was talking about. I didn't want to go. I mean, I used to drive, and, I was looking forward to it, but I would get in my car and I would make myself go because I was paying for it. And I would justify myself going, but I wasn't having any fun. It's like when you have a crappy job that you don't like to go to, and you show up every day and you're just dragging. That's how I felt.
You got bills to pay still.
That's really how I felt. It was an awkward feeling, and I'm glad that somehow I got on a path that made me stay in the game. Even though I was only rolling 1 day a week, I think if I would have took a year off and not rolled, I don't know if I would ever came back. By me kind of staying into it with like 1 foot in, I kept me still in the game. And I think that's, something that kept me going. And, I can go back to how I am today. Like, being a little bit older, I don't, maybe I'm not as good when I'm going against the younger competitive guys. And I think at my younger age, I would have been upset that, these younger competitive guys are, schooling me. And, maybe it's because my ego's changed a little bit, but it doesn't bother me like it would have, 15 years ago, where maybe I would have quit on that too. I think jiu-jitsu has kind of humbled me too, which, is keeping me in the game as I get older. Even though I do think I'm better today at 52 than I was 2 years ago at 50, and better than I was at 45, but I have lost, some speed, some strength, some flexibility that maybe I could have handled, done better with that, younger, very competitive person. But it doesn't bother me today. But there are so many factors that can get you, so you're not liking the sport as much. That can lead to you taking some time off and not coming back. And I still like to go back to the friendships we make, the coach that we have, the teammates that we have, all railing around you, checking up on you. And, I always think that's a big thing of when people are just, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you around in a while. What's going on? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there, maybe they just like to roll with you. Maybe they feel more comfortable with you and would rather drill with you a little bit more than other people. And maybe you could keep somebody in that, or just by checking up on him or having your instructor check up on him, maybe that's going to give them that motivation. Or as Byron says, talk to your instructor, get you that motivation to get back into the game.
Yeah, I really like that, Gary. You brought that back to what Byron said about talk to your instructor. Your instructor has known dozens of people like Gary who have gone through a point in their jiu-jitsu journey where things weren't clicking the way maybe they were in the beginning, and they took some time. And so your instructor, you go to them and you say, hey, look, here's where I'm at. I'm feeling like maybe I want to take some time off. They know 5 other people that have been in your shoes, and they may be able to offer you a solution like Gary. I think you came on that on your own, but your instructor might say, hey, why don't you just come to open mats on Saturday for a while, or why don't you just take a private lesson once a month or once a week, or they may have some ideas for you that would allow you to take a little time off without completely separating yourself from jiu-jitsu development.
I like that, Joe.
Yeah, your instructor is hopefully a great teacher of techniques and strategy and all that stuff, but also could be there for you if you're having some hard times with something like this, and they've undoubtedly seen people hit this sort of a wall before. Hopefully not. It's a cinder block wall, not a brick wall.
No, that's easy to break through then.
Yeah. So. But it's just from a business point of view, they don't want you to quit either. Like you much rather have somebody be your customer for 5 or 10 years versus the next 2 months and be totally burnt out and gone forever. And so they just, they're hopefully your friend, and hopefully you have a good relationship, but they also want you to do jiu-jitsu for the long term. So, they'll be looking for ways to help you get past this cinder block wall that you've kind of hit into. Another thing that might keep you off the mats is just other obligations, whether, maybe this is your busy season at work. Maybe you have some family health situations going on that take priority. You have some things to take care of. Like the number of things, maybe your grades are suffering. The number of things are as many as our people. They could have different problems. Like there's a lot of things that could happen. And it's just important to, I think on that sort of thing, like this is okay. Busy season at work. I'm working, this much a week or whatever, and anytime they're training, I can't go do it. So just to know, yet again, when this is over, I'm coming back, and then I would even kind of imprint some positive things about jiu-jitsu into your mind as far as like really why you enjoy it, and then look forward to getting back on the mats. I think I don't know about you guys. I would venture to say yes, but your social media is packed full of jiu-jitsu stuff, so it kind of keeps you kind of seeing that sort of activity over and over again, and keeps you interested in it. That may or may not help you, but just kind of know it's going to be there for you when you get back, and don't let some sort of a life situation be super frustrating. That's why we all have these things happen to us, and you look at different age brackets. In competitive jiu-jitsu, masters and seniors and that sort of thing. I think part of the reason, is definitely athleticism and an ability to train for, super long periods of time. Also, at those stages of life happens. You have different responsibilities, and so it's just more fair to put people who aren't, 18 and dedicated to jiu-jitsu up against somebody who's got, 4 kids and health issues with a spouse. And so I think you're putting people who have off the mat lives that are taking a large priority, and you're putting them kind of in the same category. It happens to be an age category as well, but that happens to everybody. Things happen that could take us away from the mats, and just know the mats will be there when you're ready to come back, and try to get some idea of a date, or if you could sneak away back to the mats, once every now and then, and make those connections again and have some fun. It's also a good way to kind of relieve stress sometimes too.
Yeah, I think that's key, man. I think that I would never tell you that jiu-jitsu is the most important thing in your life. For most of us, it's not. We've got wives or husbands, kids, grandkids, jobs that we have to maintain. And the reality is those things are more important than jiu-jitsu. And if you maintain that balance, and like Byron said, you just stay involved. I mean, if you've got 2 kids and the third one on the way, and jiu-jitsu is interfering with the time you need to spend with your spouse, man, I say take a little time off. And then, like Byron said, come to open mat when you can, stay involved with the community. And once that kid gets out of diapers, you get back into class and continue on with your journey. You're much better off doing that than ruining a marriage and having to pick up the pieces and try and move on from that later. So keep everything balanced and maintain a good perspective.
So another thing to consider, just when you do take time off, and so this happens in different categories. Sometimes you see a teenager and they're literally taking time off because if a boyfriend or a girlfriend comes up and it's like, that's going to be tough. Like, it's good knowing you. But, what are you replacing the time with? Are you filling it with a video game? I've lost good teammates, adults, to video games.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
That's unfortunate. I mean, you play, I don't know, play whatever video game you want to play, but to spend a couple of hours, a few sessions a week, putting the video game down and going and training and socializing and getting good at a physical skill other than like something with your thumbs I'm not trying to like knock on video games, but
eye coordination.
But it's, what are you replacing jiu-jitsu with? Are you just watching Netflix all the time now instead of going to train? Like, it's you need balance in your life, and you could definitely incorporate other activities into your life and have balance. But I would really hesitate to replace something with jiu-jitsu that doesn't provide the value that jiu-jitsu does. If you're doing jiu-jitsu and you love it and it's great, and you discover surfing and you love it and it's great, and it just switches to now you're a surfer, and it's like, that's fine. Like, there's nothing that we could say that would, and I wouldn't even want to change anybody's mind. If that's what your passion is, that's great. You get a lot of health benefits. There's a community involved with that. I'm sure. I don't know anything about surfing, but just try to compare the two activities. Like, what are you replacing with? Maybe it's just nothing. Maybe you're just sitting at home. I don't know. And say, well, which one's actually bringing more of a benefit to my life? And just make a real comparison. And if your passion is now, horse riding or something like that, Gary, getting lost in the woods, like, do a little pros and cons. And you probably have room for both of them, or maybe one of them doesn't really deserve as much space as you're giving it.
I like what you're saying. Maybe you have room for both of them. And, I can look at myself and Joe. Joe really likes to skateboard. I like to play basketball. And I really think, me playing basketball keeps me from, being on the mat all the time, which there's nothing wrong with being on the mat. Sometimes if I put too much time on the mat, I'm not as excited about jiu-jitsu. So, I'll go off and I'll play another sport a couple of days a week. And, I'm still getting my cardio, building my legs up, having fun with, coaching and playing. So it's something I really like. I know Joe's the same way with skateboarding. A lot of his jiu-jitsu guys skateboard. It's great for your balance. It just clears his head. I bet he's smiling when he's doing it, having a great time. And plus, you get to work on your break falls.
Yeah, forward rolls.
But yeah, I really don't know much about skateboarding, but Joe could probably, elaborate, because I know Joe isn't just, 100% into jiu-jitsu. I mean, he loves jiu-jitsu and puts a lot of effort into it, but, I know he really likes to skateboard there also.
Yep. Every time I wipe out at the skate park, I think, man, I'm glad we don't do jiu-jitsu on concrete.
But, I mean, both of you guys could do this kind of evaluation if you were like, I just want to skateboard. I don't want to do jiu-jitsu anymore. It's where what do I want to do? And then make a real comparison. What does skateboarding do for me? What does jiu-jitsu do, or what did it do? And realistically, skateboarding could win, like, in all categories. It could be like, this is really what I want to do. This is great. I'm going to do it all the time. Or maybe there's a balance there where you skateboard a few more days a week than you do jiu-jitsu. That's not a. I mean, it's an analytical approach to it. It's better than, like, both of playing basketball. Physical activities, they keep you in shape and you gain different things from them. But just to have an approach to it, not just because one of them is just strictly more enjoyable. They're both bringing things other than smiles to your life. I could stay home and eat ice cream every time instead of go train. What's that bringing in my life? Well, it's kind of fun.
Smiles.
I enjoy it. I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to, live an unhealthy lifestyle. Suddenly jiu-jitsu starts to look a lot better. I'll lose some of that weight. I'm going to be able to be fit, and maybe I'll see my abs again someday.
Well, now that Byron has presented the idea that skateboarding might be a viable option, It's been nice being on y'all's podcast.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Hey, sorry guys, I'm going to go play
Gary's going to play basketball, and I'm going to go skate, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks,
I know very little about skateboarding. Can you skateboard on bricks, or is that pretty much an impossibility?
Oh no, yeah, you can skateboard on bricks. The surface that you have to skate on will determine what type of wheels you want to use, but yeah, you can skate on bricks.
So start the brick skate podcast.
Joe, you know what we should do? Basketball on skateboards.
Oh man, with a boxing glove on one hand,
and wear gis,
and wear a gi,
and a gi.
Choking's legal. And that way we could make everybody happy.
I don't think anybody would be happy.
No, but I like the direction that this episode went, in that we're kind of ending with living a balanced life, and that jiu-jitsu for most of us is a really big part of it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the only thing that you enjoy doing. And if you need to take time off from jiu-jitsu because you've got family obligations or an injury or whatever, if you've got other physical activities that you enjoy, having those in your back pocket can be a good thing to keep you active and keep you in shape. And then when you get back on the mat, you're ready to go.
Yeah. And that goes right back to what you were talking about earlier, Joe, is not every one of us is going to be that world champion. You know, like you were saying, it seems like the person who everybody's talking about is the guy who's getting so much better every 6 months, and you don't feel like you're getting better, and you end up putting your pressure on yourself. And it's like, man, let's drop the pressure. Let's have fun. We're all different individuals. There's nothing wrong with having a balance in our life. And every one of us is a unique individual with unique goals. None of us are the same individuals.
And also, our goals and our reasons for being on the mat, they can change, and that's perfectly fine.
Good point.
Most people don't start jiu-jitsu with the idea of competing. They've heard about jiu-jitsu, they've heard that it's a lot of fun, or it's a great way to defend yourself, or it's a great way to lose some pounds or whatever. You start for one reason, and then 2 years down the road, you find yourself competing every 2 months, and it's like you're a competitive jiu-jitsu person, and then you get burned out and you drop it. And well, what brought you here? Well, you lost 40 pounds training. You made a lot of friends and you had a really good time, but suddenly competing kind of took the turn for losing several tournaments in a row, and it became not fun anymore. And you left for a different reason than what brought you here. And
I'm glad you said that, Byron, about how our goals can change. You know, I started out in jiu-jitsu. I watched Royce Gracie in UFC 1 and 2, and to be honest, I wanted to be a bad person. You know, I wanted to have those skills where I could, hurt somebody, take care of myself if something happened. I never thought, it was going to be fun. I really didn't. It didn't look fun. It just looked like, hey man, I can't wait to learn how to, extend somebody's arm and possibly break it, how to choke somebody unconscious. That was what my goal. I wanted to, become that person who could do that. And today, my goal is to have fun. I could care less if I get a tap. I want to have fun with my training partners, and to me, it's a big game. It's no different than a couple kids that go out in the front yard with a stick and pretend like they're having a battle. And I'm having a fun battle, and that's what my goal is today. Is did I have fun? Did I stress my heart a little bit to keep me in shape? Did I? And it's going to make my life longer.
Man, I'm glad you found jiu-jitsu, Gary, because I like the Gary that does not want to hurt people.
Not that I was trying
better
to hurt
than
people.
The Gary that wanted to rip people's arms off.
Yeah, no, but I really wanted to, be a bad, person if I could, if it ever happened.
Yeah.
Somebody ever started trouble with me that I could break their arm off. And today, I can tell you, if somebody came up to me and tried to start a fight with me, I guarantee I would walk my way out of it, try to shake his hand. I'd be prepared. I wouldn't let my guard down, but I would do everything possible to walk away. And I wouldn't have done that.
It's going to be more of a butt scoot away, Gary, but yeah, you keep that guard up.
That's like the whole Miyagi thing comes 360, because I think one of the earliest martial arts quotes that I'm aware of was like, you learn how to fight so that you don't have to fight. So it's like Gary came into this thinking, I really want to be able to take care of myself. If my life is threatened, I want to be able to break you guys' arm or do whatever I have to do to survive. And now that Gary can do all those things, it's kind of the last thing he thinks of. So, Gary, that's really an awesome sort of representation of what martial arts can do for you.
Yeah, martial arts, jiu-jitsu, just it's awesome. I don't even know how to put it in words, but it's definitely changed me for the better.
Yeah, Gary, I think we can all relate, at least the people who have, saw that early Hoist Gracie and started jiu-jitsu soon after that. It was like, this guy has an amazing skill of fighting. He doesn't look, much different than me physically. Like, he's just a normal person. I would like to learn those skills, whether I ever use them or not. Like, that's a learnable. He's a skilled person, and people are teaching this. Sign me up. That sounds like a neat thing. And eventually, you'll figure out when you do jiu-jitsu for a few years, you're really learning how to fight somebody else who also does jiu-jitsu, because that's where the challenge is. If you want to, like the street fight type of thing, you're fighting unskilled people. It's really not as I don't want to say it's not challenging because there's different rule set, but if somebody doesn't know jiu-jitsu, it becomes really easy to do jiu-jitsu to that person, and at what seems like a really high level. And in reality, it's just they have no idea what you're trying to do, and they don't know how to stop it. And so the fun for me is getting better against people who are also really good at jiu-jitsu and trying to ramp that up a little bit. That's pretty fun. What would you guys say as far as a teammate's taking time off? So now you're in a role of a fellow teammate, maybe a coach, and the student comes up and says, hey, I think I'm about taking some time off, or a teammate's gone for a little while. Maybe they don't tell you anything. They're just gone. And the sad thing about this, sometimes it's hard to notice, because if you're like me, I'm not at any particular class every Tuesday. I don't make it to class on that day, so I don't notice when somebody's gone, because I miss a Tuesday. I assume maybe they missed it too. Maybe they were there. I don't know. But sometimes people just kind of just drop off and disappear, and you do lose some really good friends that way. It's like, man, it's been 3 months since I saw this person. Do you guys have any advice when it comes to dealing with a teammate that is just unannounced, or maybe they're asking for some advice? Is like, I think I'm about taking time off. What would you guys say to that person?
So interesting you should mention that. I got a message from a guy that I've trained with off and on for a few years, and it was, I've got 15 or 20 jiu-jitsu t-shirts, large and extra large, that I don't need anymore. I'm looking to get rid of. You interested? And I just kind of sat on the message for a day or two and didn't respond, because I'm thinking, here's a guy that's not doing jiu-jitsu anymore. So I messaged him back, and it's like, you take some time off, or what's going on? And he's like, yeah, I don't have time for it right now. So long story short, I get a bunch of free t-shirts out of the deal. But what I'm doing in this particular situation is what I think can be problematic sometimes is when you leave the person with the feeling that I don't respect you quite as much anymore because I thought you were serious about jiu-jitsu. So I guess my advice is I'm leaving the guy with, hey, looking forward to seeing you back on the mats. If you ever want to come back, it's no big deal. We all have different priorities in life, and I know you've got kids and family things going on right now. And I'd say that's my advice, is just to make sure they understand that you come back 3 years from now and you're going to be pretty easy for me to tap, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm going to be glad to see you back, and wherever you are at that point, you just start from there and you just move forward. So I think it's important to make them feel like they're welcome back when they're ready.
I like that, Joe. You're giving them, you're not judging them, for quitting. It's not quitting, taking time off and making it easy for them to come back. The other thing I think is big is they may have been your friend in jiu-jitsu. Just because they quit jiu-jitsu, does that mean they're not your friend anymore? So if you're doing stuff outside, invite them to, go to the movie still with them, go watch a game with them. I mean, still do all that stuff. No matter what, somehow the conversation is going to go to jiu-jitsu. And, hey, is so-and-so still training, or are you doing the tournament, or did you watch the UFC? Somehow it's going to get back to there. And, it may not pique his interest, day one or week one or month one, but sooner or later, it's going to pique his interest. You guys became friends through jiu-jitsu, but there's something in common. I mean, more than jiu-jitsu, that you guys are friends. So just because that person's not training, be there for him. If he's having a party, invite you and you can make it, show up. If, do stuff with him outside. Let's say you both like to skateboard, still meet at the skateboard park. If you like to go fishing, fish every now and then. But, be there for that person. Be there if that person needs to talk. And as long as that way they see that, you are a lifelong friend. And that's the one thing we talk about jiu-jitsu. And it's a heck of a lot easier to get back into it when you've got some friends that are training jiu-jitsu, especially after you've taken some time off. It's easier to come back to that gym. So that's my big thing is, hey, if this person was your friend from the gym, why aren't they your friend anymore? Stay friends with them and stay in touch. And like I said, that was one thing I always liked, that, if I did take some time off with an injury, my instructor would always call and ask where I'd been. Because a lot of times I didn't really communicate it with everybody. And it made me feel important. It made me feel like somebody really cared. And when somebody cares, like, I think you've been saying it earlier, Byron, about your instructor. These are good people, and most of them do really, really care about you, not just as a paying customer, as a person. I mean, I can think of just about every jiu-jitsu, school owner I see, they talk about the family. I never hear them saying, oh, yeah, he's a paying customer. We talk about, family, friends, and it's, that person was your friend, and friends need help from time to time, and that's what we need to remember. We need to be there for them in their time of need.
Yeah. And so one easy little trick that I occasionally will see is, a buddy pops up on Facebook, hey, friend, they're having a birthday today or whatever. Oh, I forgot that person. It's been forever since I've seen them. Send them a little birthday message, happy birthday. Hey, love to get you back on the mat. Just like a little reach out. Just kind of, hey, we're here for you, and I'm still on the mats. I'd love to have you back. And then if that person comes back on the mats, for me, my priority is to make sure it's an enjoyable experience. So let's just say you're blue belts together, somebody leaves for 2 years and they come back and now you're, got several stripes or whatever. And you're like, now I'm going to kick his butt. Maybe that's they might be evaluating whether this is something that they want to do, again or not. They came back, which is a pretty great thing, but having a negative experience or being reminded of how much they've missed or that sort of thing may not be strategically the best thing to do as far as like their long-term jiu-jitsu journey. Just for me, making sure they have fun, even if it's like during the roll they do really well, or they happen to get out of some cool stuff that they were almost put in, whatever. Like for me, make sure it's enjoyable and that they see that they do like this thing called jiu-jitsu, and I think that's helped tip the scale a couple of times back to towards the training, which is important. And then I always just it's nice to talk with them afterwards. Man, it's great to have you here. We missed having you on the mats. You're always a fun person. You're always smiling, or just whatever you could do as far as remembering the good times. Because it's not that hard to look back. It's like this person was remembering the good old days, and this person was involved in that, and trying to jog some of those memories that they do enjoy this, and just do what you can to get them to come back. But I wouldn't. I'm not real pushy either. It's not like a sales thing. I just think it's good for people to do jiu-jitsu, and I want to encourage them if they're on the fence towards the right way.
Yeah, disclaimer. Yeah, my name's Byron, and I'm not real pushy. One time when I was out, Byron actually came over to my house and tried to get me to come back to jiu-jitsu. I had taken a week off, and I wasn't really in the mood for it. Byron put me in a hammerlock, kept the pressure, and took me out to the car and made me go in. So yeah, Byron's pushy. Don't let him.
In that situation, you're taking out the main thing. Is I did hit you literally with the brick. That's where the logo thing came from. Was the smashing with that?
That was actually a picture of Byron coming over to get me back on the mats. But it worked. So thank you, Byron.
Well, and that might be extremely exaggerated.
So I think to sum it all up, as Joe said, there's other obligations we're going to have. Jiu-jitsu is probably not going to be the most main thing in your life. As Joe said, you have family, you have jobs, you have other obligations. Don't be afraid to miss. If you're injured, it's probably smart. I think sometimes we go through injuries and we end up taking more time off. Have fun. Treat your teammates with respect. Be friends with your teammates. Encourage people. Encourage them. If they're out, give them a call. Be open to getting people back on the mats. And like Byron said, if they do take a couple years off and come back on the mats, don't pounce on them, like a wounded hyena. Let them, enjoy themselves. Let's have fun on the mats.
Yeah, good way to sum that up, Gary. And if this is an episode that you think a friend might need to hear or enjoy hearing, it just has some information that would be valuable, we'd appreciate you send it to them. Helps the podcast grow, and hopefully would help your friend out as well. And that's pretty easy to do. Just share a podcast, word of mouth, or just send them a little message with it on there. We really appreciate that. So this is the last episode before the big BJJ Brick event, June 15, 16, and 14. I don't know why I said those dates out of order. June 14, 15, and 16. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see you back in Wichita again, Joe.
Yes, I'm excited to be back in Wichita, Kansas, the vacation destination of America where jiu-jitsu happens. So, we got Samir Chantry and Gina Franson coming to do some seminars. Of course, Jake Fox will be there, and yours truly, Byron Jabbar, will be bringing us some technique and some wisdom as well. So I'm really looking forward to being up there.
Yeah, so last week, it may have been off air that Joe brought up a really interesting point. Maybe it was on there, I don't remember. But you said something about people tend to get good at jiu-jitsu in a certain area and kind of stay there, whether it's like, I get side control. Like for me, I like to get side control and work on guillotines from side. That's what I've been doing lately. It's kind of a point. But if I look at it, I should also try to improve my position more often. You remember saying that, Joe? Was it off the air?
I do remember that, because that's where I find myself. I've got a few positions where I'm comfortable and I need to progress past them, but it's easy to get in a match and get there and be like, yeah, this is where I want to be. So tell me more about what you're thinking.
And that's it. Really influenced the way. So on the 16th, I'm teaching a seminar basically, and I'm really like thinking about that and the way I'm structuring my seminar. We all, when we grapple, even if you can't make it, for the big BJJ Brick event here in Wichita, we all should be progressing towards the two most dominant positions in jiu-jitsu while we roll. Like Gary, he's got an amazing side control, a lot of pressure, really good kimuras, really good arm bars. But Gary, as an honest critique, and I do it too, you should be pushing to go to mount sometimes and be pushing to go to back control sometimes, because those positions are so strong that we need to find ourselves there more and more often. And so on Sunday, I'm really taking that, and I'm going to urge everybody to push their jiu-jitsu towards, and we're going to be focused on back control and finishing from the back, taking the back, and not just as a like a good thing to do, as a place you should always be looking to get to, because the position is so strong. And think about it. If you have somebody in your guard, you have really two options. You could try to sweep them or try to submit them, and I know the answer for me and most people, it's typically easier or has a higher success rate to sweep the person than to actually land the submission. I don't know why that is, but it's easier to sweep. Did you guys agree on that one? You get more sweeps than submissions from your guard?
I do, and I think that's because of your opponents, that their highest priority is to not get submitted. So you chase the submission, and it ends up in a sweep oftentimes.
And so looking at that, it's a little bit easier to improve your position as you go in your jiu-jitsu than it is to actually just finish. So I'm going to make a case during the seminar that we should be improving position until we get to the most dominant positions, and then the finish there will be a lot easier. And we're going to be working a lot from the back. I've been studying a lot and really working with my own game and trying to develop some things, and really excited to teach this and just hopefully just change some perspectives as far as when you're rolling, you should always have the idea that can I improve my position? Yes. Then let's go ahead and look at doing that just for a higher rate of success from that position. I'm really looking forward to teaching that on the seminar on the 16th. The 15th is the big day. We have Samir and Gina teaching seminars, two amazing instructors. We'll be teaching. And June 14th, if you can come here on the Friday evening, we're going to be kind of open mat, get meet and greet, and lots of rolling. So we'd like to see you then. There's a link in the show notes, a picture there. It'll take you to the Fox Fitness webpage, and you could reserve your spot there. And we'd be happy to have you guys. We got to meet a lot of listeners last year. We really pumped to do it again this year.
So, Byron, I got an interesting question for you. Well, I find it interesting, but of course,
I'll deliver a fairly boring answer.
So we have talked on this show multiple times, and it's been discussed in multiple articles and on other shows that, a good way to sort of get your jiu-jitsu progressing forward is to have 2 or 3 positions or 2 or 3 moves that you're proficient with from every position. I'm kind of listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking about what we've been discussing, and I'm thinking if one of those moves that you're proficient with, it doesn't advance you to the next position, then maybe you don't have the right 2 or 3 moves. In other words, if I've got 2 or 3 moves from guard and they're all submissions, my game might still be a little lacking because the part of the purpose is to get to the next best position. From side control, if I've got 3 submissions but no reliable way to get to mount, then maybe my game's still a little lacking. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at that, Joe. Yet again, I'm learning from you this week. At least this time, I think it's on air versus last week. I think we had an off-the-air discussion. Sometimes we continue to talk about jiu-jitsu, and you mentioned the desire to just kind of stay where you found a good submission and to hunt for that, opposed to improving your position first. And yeah, good insight, Joe.
I appreciate that, man.
Joe, that, kind of what you're talking about reminds me of our article of the week, understanding your learning style and getting the most out of your BJJ training. Like you guys were just talking about, instead of you get comfortable in a position, but you're talking about, hey, let's progress to the most dominant positions. And, so how can I make myself better? You're like, hey, let's get to dominant positions. But, this one is understand your style, but how do you get the most out of your training? Most people say to get better, show up. And we say that all the time. And definitely by showing up, you're going to get better. I mean, we talked about taking time off today. A lot of times when you're taking time off, you're not getting better, but maybe you're healing. Maybe your mind's getting better. So there are some positives to it. But this is a good article here by Sam Kelly that just, gives you little hints of how to become better at jiu-jitsu. And, the very first one he talks about is taking notes. And one thing I've noticed about, and I will go back to a seminar from last year at the BJJ Break event. Tim Sled was one of our special guests there last week, and Tim has had a great seminar, really taught us how to, put some crushing pressure on people. But he passed out a syllabus to everybody who was there. And, just talking to him, he's like, hey, not only is this syllabus, it's going to kind of tell you where we're going, and it'll kind of jog your memory afterwards, but we've got space to take notes for people who don't bring a journal or maybe forgot it. And, I thought that was a great idea of what he did. I still have mine, and I still have notes on it. But, taking notes, it can be after class, it can be during a break, will allow you to, keep some stuff fresh in your head. Because I know I've done it so many times. I've learned something, maybe learned a place to put my hand or, some detail on a specific move, position, concept. And, I get back and it's been a couple hours later and I don't fully have it. And, I can even talk to one of my training partners who didn't write it down. And that person may not fully have it. But that person who wrote it down, there's your most important teammate for the day. So, take some notes, what you've learned. And, we've talked about Maroon, the app Maroon. We had the founder on there too. So that's a great way to take notes too. It just doesn't have to be pen and paper.
Yep. I think one of the valuable things about taking notes is just that revisiting what you just learned and physically writing it down is a great way to really cement that in the learning process. but repeating it and troubleshooting afterwards, I guess I kind of throw that into the same category. If you're fortunate enough to go to a gym that promotes a really open dialogue about technique and what about this and what if we tried this, I think that's all really valuable. I like when a class is over and then most people are getting dressed, but there's always 3 or 4 hungry students on the mat, and they're still like, hey, well, when we did this technique tonight, I was having trouble here. And another student will come up and say, well, here's what I did to get over that. I really like that kind of review after class. And so even if you're not into actually taking notes, if you take a few minutes to review after class, I think it goes a long ways.
Great point, Joe.
Yeah. Looking a little further down the article, there's a sub point, drillers make killers, and we've talked about this before. There's really a couple different ways you could drill. You could, I can get in Gary's guard and he could throw arm bars up for 3 minutes straight and kind of, just work back and forth and do the setup and do the arm bar and that sort of thing against really a non-resistant person, just to get the feel for that. Much more in favor of, and they talk about it in the article, the situational sparring and some situational drills. What's happening here, same scenario, Gary's got me in his guard. And instead this time he's starting with an angle, maybe starting with a leg over, and he's working to finish. And I'm working to escape. And maybe we're working at a certain percentage of our ability, between, 20% all the way to 100%, speed. It doesn't really matter. You just adjust it to where you're both getting something out of it. And I think that's a better way to learn most of the time. I don't know if it's all the time, but it really feels like that's really where the money is as far as time spent on the mat, money spent on the mat. But we're both getting benefit from this, and I think it's a higher level of benefit as well, as Gary's having to problem solve and troubleshoot some of his armbar situations and finish a little bit differently and there's some muscle memory. I'm doing stuff too, opposed to the first scenario where I'm just really a dummy with arms. I'm actively working to get out of an armbar. I'm trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work for me when I escape an armbar. Where both partners are learning, I would say, at an increased rate over just the one partner learning at a lower rate. So I'm a big advocate of the situational sparring, and you could even do this like what Joe was talking about, like in the class. So like if you want to work on your armbar a little bit, you get a partner, hey, you want to drill armbars with me a minute each and just do some situational armbar finishes and partner up with them. Don't really, to develop that relationship with a couple of your teammates is a great tool to have, and just kind of have, hey, after class I'm grabbing Taylor and I'm going to work leg drags for a little bit, and then after 2 or 3 minutes we're going to switch and he's going to work something he's really passionate about. And sure, Taylor's leg drag defense is going to skyrocket. My ability to perform it will do better and better as you get yourself into these situations where you want to be. And sometimes it takes a long time to get in those spots while we're rolling. And it's like, if I don't work leg drags, but the whole time I'm playing off my back, it's like it's a disaster. I never did get to work anything that I was really focused on the day. So just putting yourself in that situation, I think that's a great way to drill and get some pretty good gains. I feel like I went on a little rant there, but I'm big on the situational sparring.
Yeah,
no, it was a good rant. Well, I'm big on the progression. I like the way one of my coaches runs class, and if I were like paying for a private, or if I were just getting together with a couple of my buddies and hey, let's get together and let's get better at jiu-jitsu, I'd follow the same progression. You do a technique. You hit some reps with increasing resistance from your training partner. You've got a relationship, and they can see when it's getting too easy, and they increase the resistance, and then a couple of rounds of positional sparring from the same position with the goal of you pass or you submit or sweep, and then you start back over, and then open mat. To me, that's the best format. We're talking about knowing how you learn best, and for me, that's how I learn best. So I love that methodology, and if you haven't tried it, I would encourage you to do so.
And Sam's last point here, he calls it the devil in the details. And I really like this little paragraph too. He's talking about, as you progress further in your jiu-jitsu journey, you narrow your focus more and more. He talks about the difference between getting a sweep or getting stacked, can rely on your grip. And it may not just be the grip, it's maybe you're gripping the wrong way. Maybe your hands are wrong. And you start, and thinking, why does this work the way it does? You look at a lot different. And, I can think of that as my own journey. As I went farther, it used to just be to learn one move. And then it learned, then I started putting stuff together. And then, here lately, I've really focused narrowed my focus more and more. And it's, now it's just these very small things I learn, different ways to base or different ways, my hand positioning makes a big difference. But, I think that's great. The devil is in the details. He talks about taking a look at some videos by BJJ Scout, and you see what he means by details. But, I really like this article. Sam Kelly, I think, wrote a really good article. I love the taking notes. I love the drilling. I love the progression, like Joe was talking about, situational drilling. And then as you start progressing more and more, you narrow your focus down to the minute details. I think this is an article everybody should check out, share on Facebook. I think it'll help a lot of people.
You're right about that, Gary. A lot of people are helping us. And by a lot, I mean several dozen. It really does help a lot having a team of Patreon supporters, and it's not hundreds, but all of their support, really makes a difference on what we're able to do. It even helps, bring Joe up here to the BJJ Break event and help us train with him and build our relationships, with each other. I want to give a shout out to our newest Patreon supporter, James. Thank you so much for joining us on Patreon. And then I have another shout out. Jamie has upped her contribution from $1 to $2 an episode. And so, there's always a thing like, do people like supporting us on Patreon? Do they sign up for it and forget about it? I'm always a little bit worried about providing the right amount of value to somebody, and I want to feel like that they don't. I don't want anybody to sign up and pledge $1 per episode and then not listen and forget that we exist. Like, that's not what I want. And when I've never seen anybody increase their pledge that they've already been pledging. And so, man, Jamie, it feels really good that you did that you're still listening and that you see value in this. And I really appreciate that. And if you want to sign up on Patreon and support us, every episode that comes out a little bit, that means a lot. We'll mail you out a 5-inch BJJ Brick gi patch and a sticker, and you're welcome to join our private Facebook group. And the private Facebook group has really helped decide this episode this week. And I threw up a whole bunch of different topic ideas, and several of them were commented about and discussed in the comments by our Patreon supporters, and we're going to be pulling multiple shows from that discussion, and this is just the first one on the list. It was the first one to be commented about, so I'm going to go down the list. And that's why we're talking about, should you take some time off, and when is that appropriate? That discussion was brought to you really kind of in a way by one of the Patreon supporters.
I really appreciate the Patreon supporters. Like Byron said, they help me get to and from Wichita for these events. And after last year's event, I got some Patreon support to get up there for the BJJ Brick. What did we call it last year? The Omahalapalooza?
Omahalapalooza.
And so I thought, this is awesome. And I watched some jiu-jitsu guys, some skateboard guys on YouTube, and man, I found one of those guys that I was consuming a lot of content with and started supporting them as a way to kind of give back, since I was a beneficiary of this. And I can't speak for everybody in their finances, but I can tell you that the few dollars a month that I give to this guy, I don't notice the money missing, but I do notice the benefit that I get out of his channel, and I enjoy watching him grow and benefit. And I'd almost be willing to say that you'll get more out of supporting the BJJ Brick than it will cost you. How's that for a sales pitch,
great
guys?
Input, Joe. If you like something, you should support it. If you can.
Joe wants a 10% raise now, Byron, not a 5%.
We'll have to work on that. But
man, I get help getting to and from Wichita, Kansas. That's all I can ask for, man.
Guys, we're really excited. Real quick, I almost forgot, we do have just a frequently asked question that we get from nobody in particular. If you want to send us a question, we'd be happy to answer it on the air. send it to bjjbrick@gmail.com. But we get sometimes we'll get questions about when do I need to start working on leg locks and when should that become a focus? What do you guys think? When is appropriate time, maybe belt level or maybe experience level, when people should start looking at doing leg locks?
Right after you start wrist locking everyone in class. It depends so much on the gym you go to and the culture. And, I go to one gym that's pretty much IBJJF compliant throughout. And there's a lot of white belts and some blue belts at the school. And so leg locks are not big. And then I train at another school where it's a lot of no-gi, a lot of super fight kind of things, a lot of MMA kind of thing. And it's you're doing leg locks right from the get-go, heel hooks at white belt. So a lot of it depends on where you're training, and it never hurts to be ahead of the game. I would say you don't want to be in a school where it's this is only allowed at purple belt or brown belt, so I'm not going to focus on it until I get to that belt. You don't want to be behind. So just go with the flow, and I guess try and stay one step ahead would be my advice.
Yeah, I think 10, 15 years ago, people would say, that people want to say early, like, a lot of people will today. We've trained with Rolly Delgado a lot. He teaches a basic straight ankle lock that is really, really, really effective, basically IBJJF legal. And, I think you could start training them on day one. If you have a good instructor. I know 10th Planet, teaches leg locks right off the bat. They're very incredible grapplers there. And I don't see any problem, like Joe said. And it really depends on the culture of your school. Some schools are going to wait a lot longer, and some schools may teach them day one. But I see no issues with it.
Yeah. I would say that one thing that you should be cognizant of are you should have a good guard pass that you could usually do. Like, I hate to see you start attacking the feet because you can't pass the guard.
Yep, good point.
And that's I think some of the early frustrations with coaches is like, this person hasn't learned proficient guard passing, and they're just wanting to attack the legs just because it gets them somewhere. And I can even think of myself. I think within the past week or so, I was rolling with a guy named Cody, and I literally worked on passing his guard for like 2 or 3 minutes. Didn't get anything done, and I was like wanting more action. And I started attacking his feet, and I told him, I'm literally attacking your feet because I have given up on passing your guard. And I popped back up, and I started to pass like that. I called it out of myself, like verbally. I said, I'm doing this because I'm not doing a good job, and then I abandoned the foot and tried to come back up. But I would say you should at least have a good understanding of guard passing before you start, especially from top, attacking the feet and using that as a way to deal with someone's guard, because I think it's more important to learn that guard passing first.
Yep. Well, Byron, I think about what happened to me and you rolling today. I was in your guard, and I had trouble passing your guard, and as soon as I felt the leg come near, I took it. And I did that twice to you right off the bat. It's because I really didn't want to pass spend the time trying to pass your guard. But now, I'm taking that constructive criticism that you said earlier that, hey, I do need to advance to a better position. So let's just say I passed, and you did say, and I totally agree with you. I sometimes, in what we talked about last week, I get stuck in my position and I'm happy there. I need to, work on advancing to mount, work on advancing to back, work on passing the guard, which I think is just as important as mount or back. Sometimes I think I just flop back for a leg because it's easier. And, sometimes I may flop back for a leg and don't have a good ashi, and next thing you know, the guy is on top of me. So, it'll backfire too. So, but, as passing guard that gives you side control, that's probably not going to backfire on me.
Yeah. Also look at the reason you're doing it. You're wanting to have fun. If you're stalled out for several minutes in the guard, attacking a leg is pretty fun. So there's just a range there. I would hesitate to tell anybody to go against what their coach is wanting them to do. That just causes frustrations as well.
Yeah, you don't want to be that one guy at the school that's attacking legs when it's frowned upon. The other thing I would add is to just make sure you're putting safety at the highest priority. If you're rolling with somebody that may not be real familiar with leg attacks, you could get a toe hold or a heel hook or something, and the minute if they're less experienced than me, the minute they start exploding, I usually abandon whatever I'm doing, because I don't want that on my conscience. I was trying to do something safe and responsible, and you exploded the wrong direction, and now your knee's blown out. So
yeah.
I'll give up the position. I'll lose the submission before I'll see somebody get hurt. So that's just me, and it might be something to consider.
Good point, Joe. That's the problem with some of these leg locks is you could know the escape, and if you perform it the wrong way, like you mentioned, you turn the wrong way, but it's like, hey, I'm going to turn out of this. You turn the wrong way. You just applied a lot more pressure to your leg than I was wanting to apply, and it basically was a disaster. So the person that you're applying the attack to needs to not just of the escape, but how to do it properly in order for it to bend safely. Even if you I got the ankle, I got the heel, I'm going to hold it here and just slowly apply pressure. If they try to escape and do that incorrectly, they end up hurting themselves, and that's not what we're wanting to do. That's not a good situation. Yep, that's a good one, and we've gotten that several times as far as looking at for different areas to focus on, and legs definitely being one of those that it makes a large percentage of a submission, so you don't want to avoid that. But anyway, this was a fun episode. I think we had some good insight as far as taking time off, and even though we have all been able to mostly avoid that sort of situation, providing a little bit of insight as far as what it would look like and how to do that successfully and come back on the mats if that's the right answer for you. I'd like to have you guys back on the mats if you're away and you're still listening to the podcast. It's still somewhere in you that you're interested in this, and get back on the mats, try it out again, and maybe come back for a different reason and change that. Anyway, great episode, guys.
Stay sweaty, my friends.
Yeah, train hard, train smart, and we'll see you next week in Wichita.
Yeah, if you come to Wichita, don't forget to shower. We appreciate that as well.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.